Alrighty, guys. So today we're talking about something called indicators. So just make sure you guys write that down. Okay. And indicators are types of chemicals that basically tell us when your titration is complete. Okay, so if you guys want to jot that down somewhere in your notes, indicators are chemicals that tell you when the titration is done. Okay. So indicators are chemicals that tell you when the titration is done. Okay, so you guys don't need to write all that stuff down on the side. That's just kind of review for what some of the stuff you already know. I'll let you guys know what you need to write down, but here we have a titration setup, and as you guys already know, underneath down here you have the acid, and in the burette you guys have the base. You guys remember this, right? So you drop the base into the acid. Okay. Now, I have some acid in a flask right here, and if you take a look at this, what color is it? Yeah, it's clear, right? So when you start your calculation, so for the acid, when you start, the color is going to be clear. Make sure you guys write this down somewhere. So when you start your titration, your acid is going to be clear. Okay, it's going to look exactly like water. Now, inside of the flask, this is also where we put our indicator. Okay, so the indicator is the chemical that's going to tell you when the titration is complete. And what it's going to do is it's going to turn your flask light pink. So you might want to write down the second step right here. Okay, when you do your titration, you want to stop when the indicator turns the flask very light pink. Okay, so while you guys write that down, I'm going to add a little bit of base to it. Hopefully I can get it. Okay, but again, when you put base into it, so you guys notice I just put a little bit of base on it and it turns the flask light pink. And the reason why is because of the indicator that's in there. Okay, so if you guys remember, it was clear a second ago. I added 1 drop of base, and then it turns light pink like this. Okay. So that's how you know when the titration is complete. Your solution in the flask is going to go from clear to light pink. Okay. So again, when you start your titration, your acid is clear. When you end your titration, it's going to be light pink. And that's pretty much what an indicator does. It changes the color of the solution in the flask, and that tells you when your titration is done. And that point is called the equivalence point, so make sure you write that term down. Okay, when your solution turns light pink, that's called the equivalence point. That's when all the acid and base are canceled out. Okay, so the equivalence point right here is when all the acid and base are canceled out. So that's pretty much what you'll be doing for your titrations when we get back from spring break. You'll have a clear flask of acid. You're going to add base to it until the solution turns light pink like this. If you get a color like this is like a perfect titration. Okay, and that's when you're at equivalent. Now, there is kind of a problem if you add your base too quickly. So if you guys remember, you can either make it flow right out of the burette, or you can make it drip out of the burette, right? So you want your burette to drip like that, because I'm gonna show you what happens when you add too much base. So if you add too much base, it turns into this kind of like on the magenta blood-like color, right? And so this is when you added too much base. And so this is the problem that you can run into when you're doing your burettes. If you're adding it too quickly like this, it might be hard to stop when you see pink, and then your titration will look like this, and you know that you added too much base and your calculations will be off. So just keep that in mind. If you want to write down step 3 just kind of as a precaution, if the flask turns dark pink, you added too much base. You want that perfect light pink that I showed you earlier. That's when you want to stop your titration, and that's why you want to make sure you add your base very slowly. Okay. All right, so today what you're going to be doing is you'll have an assignment where, again, you'll practice more titration calculations. This is the last assignment where you'll be practicing them when we get back from break. you'll actually be taking numbers from the lab and doing the titration calculations with the numbers that you get, okay?